Welcome to an episode of Coaching While Black. My name is Anthony Andino. I'm here with my two amazing co-hosts,
Armand Richards,
Chris Reed.
And today we're going to be talking about HBCUs. Chris is an HBCU graduate.
Yes.
Armand has been doing work in HBCU, so I just want y'all to tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, well, first, this topic sort of came from, you do those thought exercises if you can go back in time with what you know now. And I feel like what we've learned about the brain, working with the CHJS, has been one of those things that made that an easy answer for me. If I can go back in time to my early 20s, my late teens, what would I wish to have known? And that is about the brain. And so that sort of led to where can I spread knowledge about the brain where it makes a very high impact, but like low effort really for us. And I really felt like that HBCU was a natural place to educate all about what we know and do it in a good place where it can get out to a lot of young black people. And I've worked with a couple of the HBCUs, Shaw University in North Carolina, and it only reiterates my desire to sort of get our knowledge into the young black space.
For me, I graduated from St. Augustine's College, is now St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are rivals to Shaw U. Yeah. That was probably the best time of my life.
Wow.
Hands down. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I've lived many different places, but my time in Raleigh, North Carolina, the connections that I made, the growth that I had personally, the growth that I had within my community, the impact I was able to have on others that looked like me, it set me on this path and journey that I'm on now. And I would not change anything about that experience except for the fact that, and it's something we're trying to address, is that on these campuses, you have young people who, like me, I grew up in a black city. I grew up in D.C. when it was Chocolate City. So going to a HBCU, not too far from home, with people from D.C., I had an easier time acclimating, and it was still tough for me. But there are young people of color, there are young black men who are mixed race, who may go away to an HBCU to find that portion of themselves, and it can be very emotionally and mentally taxing. It can be a scary space because you are trying to acclimate to something that's not consistent. It's very foreign to you. But also just being away from home for the first time, being on a campus that may not be state of the art, being on a place that's more historical than future focused, creating spaces where young people actually have the opportunity to talk about what they're going through, to have expression, to have somebody to lean on, is something that I think we could definitely support with and definitely create more of those spaces on campus, and then from campus, the community that they serve. As an HBCU alumni, I am a proud one, and I'm grateful to know that I have something that I can do that's tangible to give back to my community.
As a, just a college grad, a person who's been in that experience, who's lived that life and has that lived experience, it was something that I've made some of the best, friends that I have. Like if I get married, my best man will be one of my college teammates, right? But to have had that experience be with a group of folks that look like me, a group of folks who've been through similar lived experiences, because that wasn't always the case in college, I think that would have just enhanced my experience so much more. So, and there's a lot of folks, a lot of young people who want to go and play sports in college or whatever, but HBCUs may not be as enticing as what other programs can offer you. What would you say to that young person that would kind of be the thing that got them over the hump?
I think what I would say to a young person who's trying to decide if they're going to go to HBCU or to one of these larger sport factories is that knowing HBCU may not have the NIL money to offer you. They may not have a multi-million-dollar sport facility on campus to offer you. But what you can gain is understanding of self, understanding of history, of where your people came from, who made sacrifices for you to be in this space, but also tell the story that for a very long time, we didn't have an opportunity to play at an Ohio State, a University of Alabama, a USC. We only had our own schools. And so if you have talent, you will be found. And I think what's happening now is you're seeing more and more opportunities be created for HBCU athletes to showcase who they are, what skill sets they have. In the NFL, they have the HBCU Classic that also serves as a scouting combine for the next level. I also know that Travis Scott is his foundation. They're actually supporting an HBCU basketball tournament that will highlight and showcase HBCU athletes who are trying to make it to that next level. So there is awareness there. There are stark differences. Yes, I'm the first to admit that. But that doesn't mean that your quality of life or your quality of education is that much more less or less than because you're choosing an HBCU over, a large institution or a state-funded school. It's just more so you actually get a more personalized education. I went to high school, I had 50 plus people in the classroom. I went to college, it was no more than 20. I know people went to the University of Michigan and they were happy that their school won, but there's nothing like going to a HBCU and having that pride that it never leaves, win or loss, because it's not built on wins or losses. It's built on experience and shared experience. And that's something I would always sell to a young person if they're trying to decide whether to go to a state-funded school or big school or HBCU.
Yeah, and on my end, I grew up on the West Coast where HBCUs are pretty much non-existent. You can find them all back east or in the South. So I was fortunate enough that my family, my parents, they take kids from the West Coast to HBCUs every year. They go to a different state to explore these schools. It's like a college tour to make that available as an option, because growing up, especially in LA, you get SC, you get UCLA. We were inundated with big schools and money out here. So that option, and like you said, the community aspect, to see people like you, to have a classroom filled of people like you is not something we get a lot. Or at least I didn't get a lot out here in California. I grew up in a predominantly white city where I stood out because of the color of my skin. And I was fortunate enough to have a family support system that protected me from a lot of the negatives of that. But I wish that I had taken the opportunity to go out and explore the blacker sides of my history.
And it's funny because I grew up in D.C. I grew up in Northwest Washington, D.C. I worked at Howard University all 4 years of high school. Half of that population are California kids. And a lot of them stay because that energy, that culture, that environment is not here. Yeah. And it doesn't come back with you, right? Whereas a Howard University, a FAMU, an A&T, a Central, a Tougaloo, a Fayetteville State, where these are institutions that the moment you step foot on that campus, you are accepted for what you look like, who you are, and what you bring to the table. You don't have to be anything more. You don't have to be anything less. And the experiences, the homecomings, the late nights, the parties, the band, the step shows, right? Just the pageantry of what this world is captivating, and it literally will never let you go. I challenge you to find an HBCU alumni who does not have love and pride for their school. And it's funny because we talk about being that bad kid. Y'all know I was the bad kid. My 5th grade teacher, Miss Makel, and I used to bump heads daily. And my junior year of college, she was on my campus because she went to St. Aug and she was an alum, and she had drove down with some friends because it was their 40th anniversary from graduation. Wow. And just the look on her face, and then that feeling like I had seen a ghost. And she said something to me. She was like, "I'm so glad you found this place." Because for a lot of our young Black people who are enraged, who are hurting, who are confused, who don't know what to do with themselves or don't feel like they're in a space that is conducive to their skin color, that is the one area on this planet, an HBCU, where those things do not matter. Yeah,
because those schools weren't built out of money.
Right.
They were built out of community and a shared sense of experience. So that is basically their foundation.
You know what both of y'all are saying? I feel like the HBCU community really embodies what we want the experience of young people to be when they go into these spaces. And Armond, I have a question for you, because I know we spoke to Chris about his, experience being an HBCU student and alum. You've worked with them in a different capacity. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, other than they are exactly what you expect college students to be. They are young, hungry, determined to take on the world as we expect them to. And they were really, really excited and ate up what I was sharing with them. I felt like, at least for some of them, I was not nearly as much time as I like to spend with them. But the time that I did spend, I saw, as I'm sure we've all done in this coaching experience, some lights turn on.
I love that.
And it's just this is what I want. I need I need to know that this awareness is getting out there, that I really consider this to be part of my legacy. I have kids, and I know they will carry on whatever legacy that I impart on them. But like outside of that, I'd like to be more intentional in my community, and that's hence
you're in the right place. You're in the right city to do that too.
Hence this topic. So like, this is partly I wanted to get Chris's real take on this, and just open up the HBCUs. I feel like does not get a lot of shine.
Oh no,
especially out here like in Atlanta, even on the West Coast and stuff.
From an East Coast guy, that wasn't even a world that I knew was possible to me. And I was in New York.
Yeah,
we have everything. We have access to everything. But HBCUs aren't something, or wasn't something that was put on the table for me. Like imagine being a young black man in New York City with that, just being inundated with culture and people from all walks of life, to then go into a space that's just designed for people that just look like me. And not saying that the culture aspect of New York is something that we don't want, right? That's something amazing, right? We benefit from that, and we're blessed to have that. But at the same time, to be in a space where people who just look like me, and the space is meant for people that look like me to be successful, would have been amazing.
I also think you have to think about the work that we do and wanting to create community around coaching, community around healing center spaces, community around things. Most large schools, there isn't that overall community, right? Like you might have little pockets of the science group, the math group, the rowing team, like those people kind of stick together. You don't ever see a silo more than like 15, 20 people, as opposed to HBCU. Like I can literally go on my campus right now and have a conversation with 10 people, right? About 10 different things. I can go to homecoming and just talk memories and talk what we did at 17, 18, 19, 20. We still have group chats and we laugh about things that are relevant now, but things that are old, like. So I think when you're talking about like having impact and widespread approach, what we do will catch on like wildfire, because also what going to an HBCU does is it creates a sense of community for you, right? And if we're talking about creating coaches who are community driven or have a community lens, that's a place to start. I used to work for the Raleigh Boys Club when I was at St. Aug, right? Like I worked for the city of Raleigh in their teen outreach program. I coached basketball for the city of Raleigh. I coached basketball for the Boys Club. I was doing that the entire time I was there, and I wasn't the only student doing so. And also it gave me opportunity, right? I was able to hire other classmates to work with me wherever I went, right? And share that love, because we're in Raleigh, we're dealing with majority black kids. Why not have more young black people who understand how they talk and understand how their energy is and how they move, be on staff to support what you're doing? So for our work and how we want to have impact, I think an HBCU is a great incubator and a great opportunity to drop something new into their sports programs. That, one thing about HBCUs is like, we love to be the first. We love to be the first to pioneer things or try things out. And I could honestly see one day down the road, like a healing center sport or a sport for good minor or major attached to a sports management degree from an HBCU, because that's where things actually get tested out, and then they get copied, or then they get taken somewhere else and repeated, right?
Chris is dropping the plug for Armond to be an adjunct at Shaw.
Hey, you know what's up? Don't call me professor though.
But also I think, we have to also continue to tell our stories. And the more that young people understand what HBCUs are and what they were for people, right? My HBCU was the first school for blacks, not college, the first school for blacks. It was founded by the Delaney family, right? Those are the type of things that people don't even know. As much media and conversation and negativity are around the black experience out there, outside of sport, right? There's so much history that our young people don't know, that they're not exposed to, that these are literally small cities. Some of them are small, like A&T is a small city, FAM is a small city, right? Howard is a city within the city, to where there's so many stories. Like a quote from one of my favorite movies is like, you don't know what legends have walked these halls, right? Just because we're not billionaires don't mean we're not legendary.
Right.
I know for a fact, for what I've done in my career, I've blazed trails. I've set tones for young people who can follow those steps. So you never know who went there and who did what and how successful HBCU alumni really are.
Yeah.
Like some of us are running Fortune 500 companies. Some of us are building our own tech giant companies. Some of us are doing more for the community because that's what was bred into us. So money is not the driver. Yeah. It's community, it's love, it's creating opportunities for those behind you that you will actually get out of a HBCU alumni or HBCU culture. Then how can we monetize or how can we develop something that's gonna make the school more for their endowment or more for their more for new spaces. It's more so how can we take what we have, amplify it, and spread it to more of our young people so that they feel safe, so that they feel comfortable, so that they have a sense of self.
And like you said, like you spent your high school working in these spaces where you're leading kids. I know I spent a good chunk of my youth working at Boys and Girls Clubs too, at summer camps and whatnot. And just from a professional standpoint, what greater group to train to be better coaches than the ones that are literally watching your kids in after school program, because they're the only ones that'll take these jobs. They're only paying like $18 an hour. So like, it's just, the math is just so simple to me. Like, let's get in here, teach these college kids how to be great coaches. Thereby, they learn all these things about themselves and how their brain works. They pass it on to our kids. Happy utopia. It feels pretty simple to me.
I knew I wanted to work in sports. I knew that in high school. And so every job I took was a resume builder, because I also know I have to be 2 to 3 times better than everybody else applying for any job that I go for, right? I have to be in that type of mindset. And the positive thing about my HBCU is that it let me know that I could. If nothing else, you can do it. You can be that person. You do have everything that you need. We always operate from a system of we don't have enough, or we don't have this, or we don't have that, and we never appreciate what we actually have. And my experience let me know not only could I do it, there's so much more that I can do. And to this point in my life, I'm still doing, and I'm still excelling, and I'm still doing the next thing and the next thing, because I had that space to take those risks, to figure out what was best for me, to figure out what I'm actually capable of, right? I'm a procrastinator, but I'm gonna get it done. Right? I'm a person about community, and I love that. So I'm gonna give my all to it, right? I'm a person that loves sports and how to build programs around it. And that's what I got an opportunity to do, right? And I'm able to go into a room with billionaires who own teams and say, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is my skill set and what I bring to the table. And that I learned that there, as opposed to going to a larger school where I would have been a number, or I would have been somebody
struggling the rat race.
Yeah, you know, no real, and I needed that. You know, I wasn't big on school. I was big on friendships, relationships, fun, culture. And I went to a school that highlighted all that, but then gave me the opportunity to grow academically over time.
What I love about, you know, today and having access to that instant information like social media, just how much of a platform that HBCUs are on right now. You see the NBA players, Chris Paul, players like Shannon Sharp coming out telling my story. I went to HBCU because this was the only school that gave me an offer, like you said earlier, right? And them having the ability to be out there and say, hey, this is my story, and letting young people know, because I think that's a big part of why I didn't go that route probably. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't have, you know, that wealth of knowledge of having other people, you know, talk about those experiences, right? Letting me know, like, hey, this is what this can be for you. This is a community for you, and this is, you know, these opportunities are available to you. So, you know, what do you think that, you know, other folks, and again, I'm just asking questions to you all because this is an experience that's outside of me. All right? You know, I am Black. I represent as a Black male, but I'm not in those spaces. This for me to build context and inform my next conversation on how I move forward within this space. So, like, if you think there was like something for me, right, as a person who's an outsider in that space, coming in to try and elevate those voices, what do you think that would be?
I think your experience matters, right? I think the more Black voices you have in a room, no matter if you went to a HBCU or not, the better. But I also think there's a way to go about it with HBCU students. One of my pet peeves when this conversation is, especially out here, and I'm not throwing shade, but I've come across Black people who say, oh, I went to Riverside. You know, we had our own little HBCU, but you didn't. And I think that's the thing, is like understanding what an HBCU actually is and what it represents, and respecting it for that, and not comparing your experience to what that is, because those are two different things. A group of Black students on a white campus as opposed to a city that you are accepted as is are completely different things. These students on this campus are banded together because they look like each other, and they need to create safety, as opposed to no matter where you go on that campus or in that community, you are accepted, you are in a space of safety, and you are a person of importance. You're also a person who your opinion and what you bring to the table and who you are matter.
And like in this day and age, can you think of any other place in America where a Black man can say that?
Nope. Sure can't.
Like that should be enough, right?
Right.
I'm just like, I'm flabbergasted.
And I want you, as an athlete, like you were a college athlete, right? How many black students go to these schools and people only know who you are because you play a sport?
Yeah.
Like my educational experience, literally from 6 up until I finished college, I was surrounded by all of the scholarship kids, if that makes sense. Every person that looked like me in the spaces that I went to, whether it was middle school, it was me and three other African-American kids and one Hispanic kid. We were all on scholarship. That school cost way too much money for our parents to afford, but we understood the privilege that our athleticism provided for us. Likewise in high school, likewise in college, up until I was done with everything, right? And that context, I believe, matters, but we also understood that we were a small group inside of a larger group. And I wonder what my trajectory would have been or could have been if I had the opportunity to step outside of that and be in a space where my athleticism wasn't the only determining factor that grouped me with people that look like me.
Yeah.
Right, and you know, just thinking about that idea in my own head and speaking out loud right now, because I've never done it before, it's kind of jarring, and it like makes me, you know, feel a little bit, you know, emotional about it. But at the same time, right, I'm pretty sure that by having this conversation, there's somebody out here who's gonna listen to this who's been in my experience, right? And for that person, I would say, just try and educate yourself, try and be in spaces with other people who may have been in different experiences as you, and trying to see, you know, how you can step into that or how you can learn from that experience to inform the next decision that you make.
I think that, especially with HBCU culture, there's always room for everybody. I think children who don't grow up around Black people or in Black communities, it is a harder adjustment. And that learning will continue to happen if you choose to go that route, but also you do need some support.
Is there space then, I pose this question, is there space for folks who aren't Black at HBCUs?
Oh yeah, we had, our whole baseball team was white, and they fit right in. Like cool dudes. My boy Josh, like they were students, right? But they were on a very culture-specific campus, and they bought in. Like, they were in it. Like, they didn't try to make their own thing on our small, like, we're going to make it our own thing. They were in our culture. They were at our games. We were at their games. They were in the cafeteria. They never shied away from being a part of what was going on. We had transfer students from Russia my freshman year. So there is always space there, but it is a cultural shift that you have to be prepared for, because you're exposed to things that your life may not have had that actually is a norm for 90% of students on campus. So that's what I would say, is just like having that support.
I mean, yeah, when it comes to my girls, I feel like I got a lot of my understanding of Black culture, one from my family and other from church.
Yeah.
And that's two things that my girls don't have, because we moved away from my family, and I'm not really into church these days. So like, it's always a constant question, especially in my mind. I know Kat thinks about it too, and God bless her for it. But in my mind, as a Black man, like, how do I expose my kid to Black culture as a part of life, like as a fundamental, because you're gonna have to deal with this because you are Black.
I think where you and Kat have the advantage is you live in the state where there are a plethora of schools. There's so many experiences that can be had, and just like take trips. Like, you can reach out to an admissions counselor, say, hey, my daughter's a 6. I just want them to see your campus. Is it possible for us to walk through? Or do you have a student? So like when I was in college, I was actually a tour guide on campus. When we had college tours come in, I was the one giving those college tours. You know, like I represented my school because I loved it that much. And
That
there are
gives me anxiety to think about. I just want to get that out there.
I did everything, man. I was an RA. I used to host homecoming. It's like I did all of that stuff.
I wouldn't have done any of that.
But it was because I had so much love for that space. And so go to some of these schools. There are students that will literally like, yeah, I'll tell you about my experience. You can walk with me for the day. You can see what I do. Like those are the real things that you can do and actually have a genuine experience. And you can do it more times over, especially where you are. It's plethora of schools. There's all girls HBCUs down there. There's big HBCUs. There's small. Shaw, St. August, smaller, but they're in
North
the city.
Central.
You know, Central, A&T, Bennett, Winston-Salem State. Like there's so much down there that and everyone's different.
Yep.
Right. There's unique experiences all over the place. So that's what I would say is like, go make some visits.
Yeah, man. Sounds fun, actually.
Like take some trips. If you're on the East Coast or if you're in the South, take some trips to some of those spots and gain some of that exposure because you can take some of that stuff home and continue that learning and continue to explore.
I love that. Thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Coaching While Black. Please make sure that you follow us on all of the socials at CHJS.org. Please like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Can't wait to see y'all in the next one. Peace.